HeyBrayJ here with you. Of course, we have Terry A. O'Neill joining us. She is best-selling author, poet, screenwriter, you name it. You amaze me. So many titles, and all of them well-earned. You definitely put in all the work to attain those titles. And of course, today she's joining us discussing probably one of the biggest projects of your life. And with anything worth fighting for, it comes with that fight, and you have plenty of it. My favorite word to use to describe Terry is perseverance, and you can find out more about her at terryaoneil.com. So let's start, of course, Louisiana. It's no secret you spend quite a lot of time here. You're based in California. Tell us why Louisiana? Out of all the states, what draws you to Louisiana?
My family. It's where my roots lie. It's where my mother's from, and her siblings, and my grandparents are from Iowa, Lake Charles area. And that's the primary reason, but just to make a difference. I tend to, when I do literary events, at least for Teen Read Week, I come to uplift and inspire the students and the people, all people, and just to make it be the difference, be the change, as Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. That's me. But I write Southern fiction, and I like to be in the atmosphere where my characters live, just so I can write a believable story, Southern story. So that, and it's just my favorite place to be. It's where I want to retire, and getting back to my roots.
Now, I have to say, in mentioning Louisiana, very few people get to this point in their life. And when I met Terry, she was doing a casting for a film, and what an honor. It was adapted from your novel Sweet Lavender.
Right.
And so for that to be taken and formed into a screenplay, and to the moment, well, you actually getting a cast together, that's where she and I met. And I was amazed just at that point alone. Some people don't realize the process of putting a film together, but you were there from the beginning. I mean, you wrote the story. You have, that part of it, the heart in it, the background, as you mentioned, with the characters. So kind of tell us that process for you. How you got to that point, writing the novel, and of course it really did well, to it going to the casting phase.
Well, the novel actually was released in 2003, so it is well over a decade old. I started writing it 5 years prior, so I would say in the 1990s, in the late 1990s. Just to recap, it's a father-daughter story, mother-son love story about a family growing up, a young girl growing up in a small southern town, Cecilia, Louisiana, and growing up without her father. She was a daddy's girl up until the age of 5, when her father had brought home a love child. He brought home a baby boy that was conceived out of an adulterous relationship. He brought it home to his wife and his daughter, and even though it was a terrible thing that happened, his wife was going to forgive him. And of course, Braylon, who's the main character, she loved her father regardless, and she embraced the baby, but she was only 5 years old. She didn't know the dynamics of what was going on. But Raymond, who was the father in the story, he could not deal with the rejection from his wife, so he ended up leaving the children with the neighbors one day, and he left. He wrote a goodbye letter to his wife, and he didn't come back. So the story is a coming-of-age story that takes place over a 12-year period of time, and it touches on Braylon's journey, the main character, the young girl growing up without her father, and a wife having to raise a child that wasn't her own, and her own child, in a time, it's a past time, and the story takes place, it begins in the 1960s. Raise a child that wasn't her own, in her journey, and also Raymond's journey as well. It gives us insight into his life and what he was going through. The novel was adapted to a screenplay for film in 2007, and I was lucky or blessed to be able to be a part of that. I knew that when I wrote the novel, I knew that it was going to be a film. It's that self-fulfilling prophecy. You have to speak it, believe it, and achieve it. So when I wrote it, I saw it in my mind as a film when I was writing it. Also, when I was writing it, I did, when I got toward the middle of the writing process of Sweet Lavender, I stayed in a cabin in Breaux Bridge for a week, and I hammered it out, and I got it done. But being in that atmosphere, like I said before, of course you don't always have to be in the atmosphere of your characters, but it inspires me. So in 2007 it was adapted, and I, along with a couple of other people, was able to get the adaptation done in a matter of a week or two. Of course it goes through editing stages, and a few months later we had made progress. We almost got produced, but the timing was bad. It was during a writer's strike in Hollywood at the time, so that did not happen. So I took it upon myself in 2012 to do an independent production, and that's where, of course, the setting takes place in Louisiana, so that's where I met you during the casting period when we were in pre-production.
And publicity-wise, everyone was excited for you. Everyone was covering it. Large numbers turned up to be cast. So kind of explain that process. I always say in this industry, whether it's in the literary realm, obviously, but also entertainment, anything that others are going to receive, there's so many different moments to it. So many, it's the process. And so that's why I love you. You're a great example. Despite it being on hiatus, she's still continued on with all these other projects that she has. So kind of explain that to us for those who were waiting for the film.
Well, we did, as you said, we had casting, we had a great response. We had so many talented people come out, not only to audition, but to volunteer, to help, to aid. It was a community effort. And it was just amazing. It was just amazing, the unity and how we got embraced when we came here. And so many talented people that we were working with. Like you said, we ran into some obstacles. We were in the pre-production stage. Some things fell through, and we are at a standstill. We are on a hiatus right now. It was difficult, after all the progress that we made. It was. I'm sorry. It was difficult after all the progress that we made to just find ourselves at this roadblock. Okay, through it all, it was a very extensive process. We came here, we did the auditions, we did the casting, we did the scouting of locations, met some really great people, and in late 2013 we ran into some bumps in the road, which led us to the point that we were at when we stopped production. There has been a number of changes that has happened in the production and in the production team. One of the significant changes is the film that was entitled Along the Dirt Road has reverted to its original title, which is Sweet Lavender. But we're still working on it. We have to take our bumps and our bruises, and we got to keep on pushing. It has been difficult, and I know that there is so much speculation as to what has happened and what is going to happen. We don't want to put anything out there right now, anything concrete, but we do want people to know that we're still working on it. We're still working on it. It's still in the works.
And how would you're going through this process, again, perseverance, the best word I can use, for people who may be close to reaching their goal, or maybe even some who've had that moment where they were there to attain it, and then things change. Anything that involves other factors outside of you, sometimes even inner battle, but anything that involves other people, things change. So you being a writer, you being an author, everything that you embody, how would you share with someone else who may be coming upon that moment in their life? to continue pushing forward and not to just let that moment go completely?
Well, you can't. Otherwise, you won't. You'll end up nowhere. You'll end up. I mean, my one thing that I always said to my children, and I always stressed for myself, was I never wanted to look back on my life and still be in the same place that I was 5 years ago, 3 years ago. You have to keep moving. It's not a matter of, we're always going to get a curveball. We're always going to get roadblocks. It's not a matter of if we're going to get them. It's a matter of when. It's a part of life. And if we allow those things to stop us, we won't reach our greatest potential. And that's what we are all, I believe, put on this earth to do, is to make a difference and to ultimately reach that self-actualization, reach our greatest potential in life. And we can't do that if we allow those things to stop us. There's always going to be doors closed. There's always going to be rejection. We're always going to fall, but we have to get back up and keep pushing. You can't allow that to hold you back. We just can't do it. And I can't afford it. I have too much to live for, too much to fight for, too many people to help. And my goal is to make a difference. So I got to keep moving. Got to keep pushing. It's hard. It's not easy. By no means is it. It's not easy. The writing workshops that I mentioned before, one of the tools that I use to show these writers or aspiring writers that you can't allow your fears to stop you is I bring in a stack of rejection letters this big. So they would tell me, well, I'm just not good enough, my writing isn't good enough, it's that fear of rejection. I said, we all get rejected. I get rejected all the time. But you can't let that stop you. This is I give them this big stack. This is my rejection letter. See, I still get rejected. I would collect them just as a motivating tool for them. So, you just got to keep moving. Got to keep moving.
If you can, which I'm sure it's difficult, can you describe what you would say is the highlight of your career so far?
The highlight of my career, I would say, would be Sweet Lavender, the novel, and the film. Even though it has not come into full fruition yet, it is going to. So working on it and working with all the people here and my production team, it has been the most amazing experience, being able to work with the community and really be a part of it. And just to make this film happen. It's a very inspirational, motivational film and novel. That, I would say, up to this point, is my greatest accomplishment, even though we're still working on it, but it's going to happen. So, the film itself.
Early on in life, some people may have those defining moments where they know they're destined to do something greater than just your everyday. And I know for you, it was early on in life that you had the opportunity to meet the late Maya Angelou. Kind of describe that time frame for you, but then how that carried forward in your career.
Well, I was 5 years old at the time. My mother worked in an African gallery on the north side of town where I'm from. And my mother exposed me and my siblings, my sisters, I have two sisters. She exposed us to arts, literature, and culture, and I have one brother, let's not forget about him, at a young age. At the time, it was us three girls. And I knew who Maya Angelou was. My mother had her books, and she read to us. My mother taught me how to read and write. So I knew who she was, even though I couldn't appreciate who she was at that time. I couldn't even appreciate that experience. We were at this little gallery. It couldn't have been bigger than this. It was so small, and it was in the 80s. And her mother, actually Maya Angelou's mother, lived in Stockton, California at the time. And she was spending time with her mother during this period in her life. And she had a book signing at this gallery, this little tiny gallery. And I remember my mother introducing me to her. And she shook my hand like I was just grown. And I was just all of 5 years old. But it's one of those moments that you just don't forget. I carried it with me. Even though I couldn't appreciate it then as a child, I carried it with me all throughout my life. And it has contributed to the woman, the writer, and the person I am today. I can just reflect on that because I remember it so vividly. in my mind, and that was just one of the moments that has contributed to me as a person and as a writer.
Thank you so much. It was great to catch up with you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, to find out more about Terry, terryaoneal.com. All of her literary works, other projects she's working on, keep up with her there. And of course, looking forward to seeing you visit more schools throughout the country during Teen Read Week.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course, more coming your way, HeyBrayJ.com.